My name is Amani Washington, 34 years old. The day everything changed started out so perfectly ordinary. I had just stepped out of a lawyer's office downtown, papers in hand, still dizzy from the words echoing in my head. You've inherited $29 million, Ms. Washington. $29 million. I couldn't stop smiling. My Aunt Hattie, who raised me like her own daughter, had left me everything. I remember thinking how Marcus, my husband, would finally have the life he always dreamed of. We'd pay off his debts, start fresh, maybe even move out of Atlanta. I just wanted to see his face when I told him. But I never made it home. One moment I was waiting at the red light, and the next, blinding headlights, a roar of metal, then nothing but darkness. When I opened my eyes, the first thing I heard was a steady, cold beeping. Beep. 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 I tried to move, but pain tore through my chest. My mouth was dry, my body heavy, and the ceiling above me shimmered with hospital light. A nurse's voice floated through the haze. Easy now, sweetheart. You've been out for a while. Her name was Jackie, a woman with tired eyes but a warm soul. She told me I'd been in a coma for 4 days, hit by a truck, lucky to be alive. The first name that left my lips was Marcus. Did my husband come? Is he here? Jackie hesitated, and in that pause, I already knew something was wrong. There's been no one by that name, honey. We tried calling the number you listed. No answer. I wanted to believe it was a mistake. Marcus was busy, maybe traveling for work. But as the hours passed, no calls came. No flowers. Nothing. Just silence. When I finally reached him through a borrowed phone, his voice on the other end wasn't relief. It was irritation. Amani, I don't have time for this. You almost died? Fine. But I'm broke, I'm tired, and I can't keep dragging around a loser. Then, click. He hung up. Years slipped by in slow motion. Recovery was long, lonely, and bitter. But money has a strange way of attracting people you wish would stay gone. One rainy afternoon, the door to my hospital room opened, and there he was. Marcus. Dressed in an expensive suit, grinning like a man who'd already forgotten the past. His hand was wrapped around another woman's. He dropped a stack of divorce papers onto my blanket. It's time we move on, he said. But fate, as it turned out, wasn't quite done with him. The woman beside him, tall, elegant, all confidence and sharp perfume, froze when she saw my face. Her eyes widened, the color drained from her cheeks, and she dropped her designer briefcase. Wait, you're Amani Washington, she stammered. Marcus frowned. You two know each other? I smiled, slow and cold. She's my lawyer, I said softly. The one managing the $29 million trust you just tried to take from me. Marcus didn't understand. Not yet. But he was about to learn, in the cruelest way, that betrayal always has a price. I tried to lift myself on my elbows, but pain shot through me so sharp it felt like lightning cracking my ribs. I collapsed back onto the pillow, gasping. I have to call him, I muttered to no one. Marcus needs to know I'm alive. The thought was the only thing keeping me from falling apart. This had to be some awful misunderstanding. He'd come as soon as he heard. He had to. Once I told him about Aunt Hattie's inheritance, about the $29 million, everything would finally make sense. The money would fix it all, the stress, the fights, the resentment. We'd be happy again. Nurse Jackie handed me the hospital's old beige phone. My hand trembled so hard I almost dropped it. I dialed his number, fumbling twice on the keypad before the call finally went through. It rang once. Twice. On the third ring, he picked up, and what I heard first wasn't his voice. It was music. Loud R&B, laughter, the clink of glass. A party. Yeah? Marcus's voice cut through, sharp and impatient, the same tone he used with telemarketers. Marcus, I whispered. It's me. My voice cracked, and a sob slipped out before I could stop it. I was in an accident. I'm at Mercy General. Please, come, he sighed heavily on the other end. Imani, what is it now? I told you I'm in a meeting. You know how important this deal is. I was hit by a truck, I choked out. They said I was in a coma for 4 days. Please, Marcus, I need you. There was a pause. I thought maybe, just maybe, he'd softened. But when he spoke again, his voice was ice. Hospital? Are you kidding me? What did you do this time? Crash the car? God, Imani, it's always something with you. I tried to breathe through the pain burning in my chest. Marcus, please, he must have stepped away from the noise, because the music faded. His next words were quieter, colder. Listen to me, Imani. I'm done. I am so tired of your constant drama. You're a burden. You've always been a burden. I'm out here trying to build something real, and you're just dragging me down. My mouth went dry. What are you saying? I'm saying, he hissed, I don't have the time or the money to chase after a loser. You hear me? You're on your own. Then, click. The dial tone buzzed in my ear like a cruel laugh. I placed the phone back on its cradle slowly, carefully. My hand didn't shake anymore. My tears had stopped. A loser. The word echoed in my skull, ugly and hollow. For 10 years, I'd held our lives together, my nonprofit salary paying our rent, our bills, his endless business meetings. I'd skipped lunches so he could impress investors with steak dinners. I'd bought him suits, covered his debts, and cheered him on while his so-called startup devoured everything we had. And now, flat on my back, bruised and broken, he'd called me the loser. It wasn't heartbreak that filled me then. It was something colder. Something heavy, like a stone settling in my chest. When Nurse Jackie came back, I must have still had that look on my face, blank, too still. She set down a tray with water and pills, watching me quietly. He said something cruel, didn't he? She asked softly. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She saw it in my eyes. Her voice hardened. Let me guess. He called you a loser. I gave a small nod. Jackie sighed, the kind of sigh that comes from knowing too many stories like mine. Funny, she murmured. A man living off your money calling you a loser. I've seen your file, sweetheart, those credit card statements. That Gold American Express must have been working overtime. My head turned toward her. The motion sent pain searing through my ribs, but I ignored it. What did you just say? Jackie's voice dropped lower. Those alerts from the bank, the overdrafts, they don't lie, honey. He's been spending like he's rich. Only problem is, he's been using your name to do it. Nurse Jackie's voice had changed. It wasn't the gentle tone she used when checking my for or adjusting my blanket. Now, it carried something else, steel. The hospital's billing department got a fraud alert this morning, she said quietly. Whenever a patient's card is used unusually, they check with us first. Your card's been busy, honey. I frowned, confused. Busy? What do you mean? Jackie hesitated, watching me carefully as she read from a printed note in her hand. Yesterday, $5,000 at Gucci, Lenox Square. The night before, another $2,000 at Del Frisco Steakhouse. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline that never came. That's not possible. My cards are in my wallet. My wallet's in my purse. And the purse, the police must have it from the accident. Jackie slowly shook her head. Her expression softened, but her eyes didn't. Oh, baby, she murmured, the police don't have it. We did. Or rather, we did. My mouth went dry. What do you mean, did? She exhaled, a heavy breath that seemed to carry the whole weight of the world. We pulled the security logs this morning when those charges came through. A man named Marcus Vance came in the night you were admitted. My pulse quickened, thudding painfully against my ribs. He was here? You said no one came. He was here, Jackie repeated, her voice flat, stripped of pity. But not to see you. He never asked a doctor how you were. Never went near your room. I could barely breathe. Then what did he? He went straight to the nurse's station downstairs, she said. Told the staff he was your husband and needed to take your belongings home to keep them safe. He even flashed his ID. And the new girl on shift, first week on the job, she believed him. She handed him your purse from the property locker. The world tilted. For a second I thought I might black out again. He was here, I whispered. While I was unconscious, he was here. Jackie nodded grimly. We confirmed it this morning when the fraud team called. The cards he stole, your cards, are the same ones used in those charges. Something inside me cracked. Not loudly, not like the crash. It was quieter, like ice splitting beneath a thin layer of snow. He'd been here. He'd seen my name on the chart. He'd known I might not live. And instead of holding my hand, he emptied my wallet. The shock didn't come in waves, it came all at once, cold and absolute. It was like a blade slipping neatly between my ribs, cutting straight to the core. The pain from the crash was nothing compared to this. This was the real impact. The sobs just stopped. Not because I chose to, they simply ceased to exist. The room grew unnaturally still, the monitor's rhythmic beeping filling the silence where my breath should have been. I could feel my pulse in my temples, steady, distant. My body was broken, yes, but my mind had gone sharp as glass. He was here, I whispered again, the words hollow, mechanical. 4 days ago. While I was dying. Jackie didn't speak. She didn't have to. The truth sat between us like a third presence in the room, silent, cold, and undeniable. And then, like the sudden slam of a memory I didn't want to remember, something clicked. It hit me all at once, not gently, not gradually, a violent collision of realization. This wasn't an accident. It never had been. The memory came back like a shard of glass through water, sudden, sharp, undeniable. Not foggy. Not fragmented anymore. Crystal clear. The last thing I remembered before the blinding headlights. I was sitting in my car, the old Honda with cracked leather seats and that faint smell of damp concrete from the parking garage under Hayes and Associates. My hands were trembling so badly I had to dial twice before the call went through. I was crying, but not from fear. From joy. Disbelief. Relief so raw it felt like laughter. He picked up on the second ring, his voice clipped, irritated. What, Amani? I'm busy. Marcus, oh my God, Marcus, I blurted, half sobbing, half laughing. You won't believe it. Aunt Hattie, she left it all to me. A pause. Then a sharp exhale. What are you talking about? His tone was mocking, impatient. Left you what? Her collection of ugly hats? Those dusty old books? No, Marcus, I'd said, laughing and crying at once. The money. All of it. Mr. Hayes just told me. $29 million. $29 million, Marcus. We're rich. The silence that followed wasn't joyful. It wasn't stunned disbelief. It was calculating. I remember the shift in his breathing, slow, measured, deliberate. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. Low. Controlled. Urgent. Where are you right now? I'm still in the parking garage, I said, still giddy. At the lawyer's office. I'm coming home. No, he interrupted quickly. Stay there. I'll come get you. What? No, I'll just drive. I'm already, Amani. His tone hardened, just for a second. Just come straight home. Don't stop anywhere. Don't tell anyone. Do you hear me? Not your sister, not your mom, nobody. This is our news. Just ours. Understand? I was smiling through tears, too blinded by hope to notice how strange he sounded. Yes. Of course. I love you. I'll see you soon, he said. And then the call ended. I remembered how light my chest felt after that. How the world suddenly seemed bright and open. I'd gripped the steering wheel, heart thundering with a wild joy I hadn't felt in years. We were finally free. His debts, the endless stress, gone. We could finally live. I drove out of the parking garage, humming to myself, onto the quiet road leading toward the highway. And then, the black truck. Out of nowhere. I remembered it now in perfect, horrifying clarity, the screech of tires, the engine revving too fast, the way it crossed 2 lanes to line up perfectly with my driver's side. It hadn't swerved. It hadn't lost control. It had aimed. The impact. The sound of metal collapsing. Glass exploding. Then nothing. Back in the hospital room, the steady beep of the heart monitor was the only sound left in the world. He knew about the money. He was the only one who knew. He'd called me a loser. He'd hung up on me. He'd stolen my wallet while I was in a coma. He was spending my money while I lay broken in this bed. This wasn't fate. This wasn't bad luck. This wasn't a hit and run. It was an execution that failed. Marcus had tried to kill me. The pain in my ribs turned to fire, but what spread through me now was colder, deeper, a terror laced with something even more dangerous than fear. Clarity. I was being hunted. My husband had tried to kill me. And now, his important partners, he was with them, at a party. At my sister's house. I was alone. Trapped in this hospital bed. A sitting duck. In a last, desperate wave of primal fear, I grabbed the hospital phone again. There was one person left. My sister. Tamara. Maybe she didn't know. Maybe she would believe me. My fingers trembled as I dialed her number from memory. Sister. Tamara, I choked out when she answered. The tears I thought had dried came back, hot and panicked. Please, you have to help me. I'm at Mercy General. I was in a crash. A truck hit me. I paused, trying to breathe past the pain. Marcus, he was here. He stole my wallet while I was in a coma. And oh God, Tamara. I think he tried to kill me. Silence. Not shock. Not concern. A heavy, annoyed silence. Imani. Her voice was sharp, clipped, dripping with impatience. The same tone she used when I embarrassed her. What in the world are you talking about? Tried to kill you? Are you drunk? What kind of nonsense? No. I'm in the hospital. Please, listen, I don't have time for this, she snapped. Do you even know what day it is? It's Sunday. Ryan's parents are here. His boss is here. We're in the middle of a very important barbecue for Ryan's firm, and you're calling me with this drama? A barbecue. My mind went blank. She was worried about a barbecue. But Tamara, he's spending my money, he's at a party, of course he's at a party, you idiot, she laughed, a short, cruel sound. He's here. He's in the backyard with Ryan right now. I couldn't breathe. Marcus, is at your house? I whispered. Yes, he's right outside, she said, her frustration rising. Ryan is helping him get back on his feet, introducing him to his partners. This could be huge for them. And you have the nerve to call me, accusing him of trying to kill you? My stomach dropped. You're unbelievable, Imani. You're just like always, jealous and dramatic. Jealous? Yes. Jealous that I married a successful man. Jealous that Ryan is helping your deadbeat husband when you couldn't. You just had to call and ruin it, didn't you? Trying to make me look bad in front of Ryan's family. Tamara, no, please, he stole from me, I don't want to hear another word. You're embarrassing me. You're embarrassing this family. Get yourself together, take an Uber, and go home. Don't call this house again. Click. The line went dead. I sat there, the phone buzzing in my hand, the dial tone screaming in my ear. He was there. They were all together, my sister, my brother-in-law Ryan, and my husband, Marcus. At a barbecue. Laughing. Making deals. Spending my money. After trying to kill me. I slowly placed the phone back on the hook. The realization was absolute. I had no family. They were all in on it, or worse, they simply didn't care. My life was worth less to them than Ryan's firm, his money, his world of polite smiles and white-collar handshakes. I was the quandary, the embarrassment, the scapegoat. And now, I had become a problem they needed to solve. 2 days passed. I didn't cry again. The panic was gone, burned away by something colder, cleaner, rage. My broken ribs were only a dull echo now, background noise behind a new, perfect clarity. I was no longer the victim of an accident. I was the survivor of an attack. And I was going to fight. I spent those 2 days on the hospital phone, not with family, but with the only people who mattered, Hayes and Associates. Mr. Hayes himself took my call. I told him everything, the crash, the timing, Marcus's call, Tamara's betrayal, the stolen wallet. His response wasn't emotional. It was tactical. He confirmed what I had already begun to suspect, the $29 million trust was ironclad. My signature, and mine alone, was required for any transfer. Marcus couldn't touch a single cent. And that, Mr. Hayes explained, was precisely the problem. With me alive, Marcus got nothing. But if I were declared mentally incompetent after a tragic accident, or if I died, he could petition the court to control my estate. That was why he needed me helpless. Or dead. Ms. Washington, Mr. Hayes said, his voice steady, you are in danger. Do not speak to anyone, not your husband, not your sister. We are handling this. I'm sending our top litigator to you immediately. Her name is Brenda Adebayo. She's the best. Don't say a word to anyone until she arrives. So I waited. I watched the traffic crawl through downtown Atlanta from my hospital window. My mind was sharp as glass now. Every breath, every heartbeat was measured. I was waiting for Brenda. But I was also waiting for him. I wanted Marcus to come. I needed him to show his hand. And on the afternoon of the second day, he did. Footsteps echoed outside my door. Confident. Arrogant. A rhythm I knew too well. Then, bang. The door flew open, slamming against the wall. Marcus. He wasn't the man I'd married. Not the irritated, defeated husband I'd known. This was a stranger. He wore a brand new Tom Ford suit, deep navy, perfectly tailored, gleaming under the sterile hospital lights. I knew, with a sick certainty, that my gold card had paid for it. His hair was freshly lined, his smile sharp and cold. Not warmth, victory. The smile of a predator who had finally cornered his prey. And then he stepped aside, holding the door open, like some mockery of a gentleman. A woman walked in after him. She was, I realized with a jolt of pure intimidation, the most powerful-looking woman I had ever seen. Tall. Impossibly elegant. African-American, with skin like polished mahogany and a presence that made the fluorescent lights seem to dim in deference. She wore a cream-colored, structured designer suit that probably cost more than my entire salary for a year. Her heels clicked with sharp, deliberate authority on the linoleum floor. In one hand, she carried a dark, gleaming Hermes briefcase. Her hair was pulled back into a severe, perfect bun, her makeup was flawless. She radiated a kind of wealth and control I'd only ever seen in movies. My stomach dropped into a cold, black pit. Brenda Adebayo. It had to be her. The name Mr. Hayes had given me. The top litigator. The savior who was supposed to protect me. But she wasn't here to protect me. She was walking in, arm linked with my husband's. She looked at Marcus with an indulgent, affectionate smile. Then her eyes slid to me. Her gaze swept over the hospital bed, over the cheap, starchy blue gown, the unwashed hair matted against my scalp, the purple bruises spreading under my skin, the 4 taped to my hand. Her expression, once warm, turned to ice. It was the look of someone about to crush an insect, irritated only by the thought of getting her shoe dirty. "Oh, look at that." Marcus's voice boomed into the sterile air, loud and theatrical, like he was greeting an old friend at a cocktail party. "It's still alive." He chuckled, a deep, ugly sound that rattled in his chest. "I have to be honest, I really thought you'd be dead by now. Guess those doctors are better than I thought." "What a shame." My mouth went dry. My heart hammered against my broken ribs. I couldn't find my voice. Finally, the words scraped out, raw and trembling. "Marcus, what are you doing here? Who is this?" He laughed, a real laugh, joyous and cruel, the sound of a man who knew he'd already won. He strolled past my bed and stopped beside her, slipping an arm around her slim waist. She leaned into him effortlessly, her manicured hand resting on his chest. He kissed her. Slowly. Deliberately. When he turned back to me, his eyes were glittering with mock sympathy. "Imani, I'm hurt. Is that any way to greet your husband, and your replacement?" He gestured proudly to the woman beside him, his smile widening into something wolfish. "Imani, meet Brenda. She's my everything. My partner. My protector. My new wife." I stopped breathing. The heart monitor beside me began to scream, beep, 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 faster, louder. "Well," he added with a lazy wave, "she will be. She's my lawyer first, of course. But as soon as she's finished cleaning up this mess," he flicked his hand toward me like I was nothing more than a stain on the sheets. "Then she'll be my wife. We're getting married in Italy. She's already booked the villa in Lake Como." Brenda finally spoke. Her voice was everything I expected, smooth, deep, completely detached, like she was ordering a coffee. "Marcus, darling, can we speed this up? You said she was ready to sign. I have a 3 o'clock reservation at Bacchanalia, and I don't intend to be late." The air between us turned to glass, thin, sharp, ready to shatter. Marcus's voice was low, deliberate, every word measured like he'd practiced it in front of a mirror. "You're confused, Imani. You hit your head. You've been under medication. Nobody's going to believe you." My fingers tightened around the blanket, the hospital fabric rough against my skin. "They will," I managed. "They saw the car." "The police? Oh, sweetheart." Brenda's voice sliced through my sentence. "The police report says it was a malfunction. Your car's brakes failed. Tragic, really. No evidence of tampering." Marcus smirked. "See? Even fate's on my side." I wanted to scream, to tear out the floor and claw my way out of that sterile room. But instead, I stared at him, really stared. The man I once loved, once trusted with everything I had, was gone. In his place stood something hollow and hungry. "You won't win," I said softly. He chuckled, bending closer until I could feel his breath against my ear. "I already did." He turned, straightened his jacket, and nodded toward Brenda. "We're done here." But just as they reached the door, a soft knock interrupted the silence. "Come in," Marcus said, irritation dripping from his voice. The door opened, and a nurse stepped in, short, middle-aged, with tired eyes and a clipboard hugged to her chest. "Sorry to interrupt, but visiting hours are over. Mrs. Coleman needs rest." Marcus gave her a charming smile, the kind he used to get discounts and sympathy. "Of course, nurse. We were just leaving." She nodded politely, her gaze flicking briefly to me, and in that brief flicker, I saw something. Recognition. Concern. Maybe even understanding. As Marcus and Brenda left, the nurse lingered. When the door closed behind them, she leaned close, her voice barely above a whisper. "Mrs. Coleman," she said, "don't sign anything. Whatever they give you. Don't." My breath hitched. "You heard them?" She nodded. "Enough." Then she slipped a small card from her pocket and pressed it into my hand. "Detective Rowe. He's been asking about your case." Before I could say another word, she straightened, gave a polite smile, and walked out as if nothing had happened. I stared at the card. My hand trembled, but for the first time since the crash, I felt something warm spark in my chest, not fear this time, but resolve. Marcus thought I was broken. Thought I'd sign my name and hand him everything. He forgot one thing. You can't destroy what you don't fully understand. And he never understood me. Brenda flipped to the next page, her movements crisp, professional, almost mechanical. She was efficient, detached, cruelly beautiful in that expensive, sterile way some predators are. I watched her as if through glass, the edges of my vision pulsing. She paused for half a second, a tiny wrinkle forming between her brows. "Wait," she muttered, scanning a paragraph. This is sloppy, Marcus." "Who drafted this section?" Marcus frowned. "You said your paralegal could handle the prep. What's the problem?" Brenda's tone turned icy. "The problem is that your paralegal can't write a legal clause to save her life. This section on medical incompetence, it's missing the secondary declaration from a psychiatrist. Without that, your emergency motion will get tossed the minute a judge looks at it." Marcus's jaw clenched. "Fix it. That's your job." Brenda snapped the papers shut. "I don't do amateur hour, Marcus. If you want to win this, you'll wait until Monday when I file the supplemental affidavit. Until then, keep her quiet." She dropped the papers back on my bed with a disdainful flick of her wrist. Her perfume lingered in the air, sharp and sweet, like something poisonous dressed in silk. Then she turned and walked toward the door, her heels clicking like a metronome of power. "And Marcus," she added without turning around, "don't touch her. A bruise right now could ruin everything." The door shut behind her. Silence filled the room again, except for the faint hum of the Ford machine. Marcus turned back to me, his eyes burning with quiet hatred. "Don't think she's your savior," he said softly. "Brenda works for me. Everyone does. Even Hayes." The name cut through the fog in my head like a knife. Mr. Hayes. The man who'd promised to send help. The man who'd said Brenda was coming. Unless this Brenda wasn't the one he meant. My pulse quickened. Marcus mistook the flicker in my eyes for fear, and it made him smile again, that same wolfish grin that used to make my skin crawl. "Think carefully, Imani," he said. "You've got 1 hour. After that, I come back with witnesses, and you'll sign whether you want to or not." He left, slamming the door behind him. I exhaled shakily, my ribs aching with each breath. The room seemed smaller now, closing in. But my mind was finally clear. If Hayes had really sent someone, she was still coming. And if Marcus was this desperate, if he had to bluff, threaten, rush, that meant he didn't have full control yet. I reached for the call button with trembling fingers and pressed it. A nurse appeared, the same one from earlier, the one with kind eyes and quiet steps. "Mrs. Coleman," she whispered urgently, glancing toward the door. "There's a woman downstairs asking for you. Says she's your attorney. Brenda Adebayo." My heart stopped. "Tall, dark-skinned, navy suit?" I asked. The nurse shook her head. "No, ma'am. Short hair, gray suit. Nigerian accent. Says Mr. Hayes sent her personally." I felt the world tilt. My throat went dry. So that was the real Brenda Adebayo. And the woman who had just left my room, the one Marcus brought, wasn't her. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was a setup. Marcus hadn't just tried to kill me. He'd built an entire illusion around me, and now, that illusion was cracking. Brenda rounded on him so fast her hair whipped over her shoulder. The sleek bun had loosened, a strand fell across her cheek as she jabbed her trembling finger into his chest. "You lied to me," she spat. "You told me she was a fraud, a con artist, some woman trying to scam you out of your inheritance." Marcus blinked, dumbfounded. "Wait, what are you talking about?" She's my wife. She's crazy. Look at her." Brenda's voice dropped, cold and cutting now, but her hand still shook. "Your wife," she said slowly, "is the rightful heir to the Hattie Trust. The entire trust. $29 million, Marcus. She spun toward me, still breathing hard. And Hayes and Associates, my firm, was retained to represent her. To protect her assets. To make sure no one exploited her after the accident. Marcus blinked again, his expression breaking into a nervous, artificial smile. No. No, that's impossible. You must have the names mixed up. But Brenda was already kneeling, grabbing at the scattered papers from her briefcase with frantic hands. She yanked out a manila folder stamped with the embossed seal of Hayes and Associates. Inside it, my name, Imani Washington, was printed at the top of the client file. Brenda looked up at him with absolute fury. You forged documents in my firm's name. You used my credentials, my signature on false petitions. Marcus took a step back, his voice rising. You don't understand. She's lying. She's manipulating you, she always does this, Brenda straightened to her full height. The tremor was gone now, replaced by the terrifying steadiness of a woman realizing just how deep she'd been dragged into someone's crime. Her voice was calm again, too calm. Marcus Coleman, she said. Do you have any idea what kind of federal offense that is? Fraud, forgery, obstruction, using a false attorney record? You just signed your own death warrant. His face twisted, panic finally seeping through his arrogance. Brenda, baby, wait, listen, I did this for us, you said you wanted to win, that you wanted, she slapped him. The sound cracked through the sterile air like a gunshot. Don't you dare use my name in this, she hissed. The nurse burst in then, eyes wide. What's happening in here? Is everything, call hospital security, Brenda said sharply, her composure snapping back like armor. And get me Detective Rowe from Atlanta PD. Tell him Brenda Adebayo from Hayes and Associates is filing an immediate fraud complaint. Marcus turned toward me, disbelief warping into something ugly, an animal cornered. You, he snarled, stepping closer. You did this. You, but before he could finish, Brenda stepped between us, her voice a whip, touch her, and I will end you. 2 security guards appeared in the doorway, hands hovering near their belts. Marcus froze. Brenda glanced back at me. Her voice softened for the first time. Ms. Washington, she said, I owe you an apology, and a promise. You're safe now. For the first time in weeks, I believed it. As the guards led Marcus away, shouting about lies and setups, Brenda stooped to pick up her gold pen from the floor. She looked. I'll get you a better one, she said quietly. One you'll use to sign his prison release, never your freedom. He came here, I said, my voice trembling now not from weakness but from rage that had been frozen for days, waiting to thaw. He came here and went straight to the billing office. He wanted to know how much longer the hospital would keep me alive. He told them he was my husband, and that I had no insurance. He signed papers, authorization forms, trying to move me into hospice care. Hospice care, Brenda. Marcus took a step back. That's not true, he croaked. I was just trying to what? I snapped. Save money? Speed things up? I leaned forward, my ribs screaming, but the pain was fuel now. You thought if I died, you could cash out the trust. You could take the money and run. But you got greedy. You couldn't wait. You needed a lawyer, didn't you? Someone who could help you access it legally. Brenda's jaw tightened. Her voice was low, dangerous. He came to the firm a week after your accident, she said, mostly to herself. He told us his fiancée was critically injured. That he was handling her estate. She turned to Marcus, eyes narrowing into blades. You showed me her signature, didn't you? The trust authorization form, you forged it. Marcus's breathing was ragged now. Sweat dripped down his temple. You don't understand. It wasn't like that. Imani, you weren't supposed to what? I hissed. Wake up? The silence was sharp enough to cut. Brenda's hand trembled slightly as she reached into her briefcase, pulling out a folder, the same one Marcus had dropped earlier. She flipped through it rapidly, her lips tightening. You forged 3 documents. Power of attorney. Executor authorization. Signature verification. She turned one of the pages toward me. There it was, my name, my looping signature. Except it wasn't mine. He practiced it, I said quietly. He used to sign my name on dinner checks when we went out. Thought it was cute. Brenda slammed the folder shut. Mr. Vance, she said, voice like ice breaking. You are under investigation for attempted fraud, conspiracy, and if what Imani just said holds, attempted murder. Marcus's eyes darted to the door. For 1 second, I thought he might actually make a run for it. But Brenda stepped forward, heels clicking like gunshots on the tile. Don't even think about it. He froze. I reached over and pressed the call button beside my bed. You might want to stick around, I said evenly. Because in about 30 seconds, security's going to be here. And after that, the police. Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it again. His face was a ruin now, panic, disbelief, the last flickering embers of his arrogance burned out completely. Brenda's voice softened, almost pitying. You really thought you could outsmart me, Marcus. You really thought you could outsmart her. And for the first time since I'd woken up in that hospital bed, I smiled. Because the game was over. And this time, I wasn't the one lying broken on the floor. She's lying. Marcus choked out, the words tumbling from his mouth like loose change. She's lying, Brenda, you can't believe her, she's confused, she just woke up, she doesn't. Brenda's hand shot out faster than I thought possible. The sound of her palm cracking across his face echoed off the hospital tiles, sharp and final like the snap of a gunshot. Marcus stumbled back, one hand pressed to his cheek, eyes wide with shock. Brenda stood there, chest heaving, every line of her body coiled and trembling. Don't, she said, voice trembling but deadly. Don't you dare say another word. She was shaking now, but not with fear. It was the tremor of someone whose entire life had just imploded, someone who knew, in the deepest marrow of her bones, that she had been had. You sat there, she said, voice low and trembling, in my office, telling me about your poor, unstable wife. You showed me hospital records. Doctored ones. You brought me emails. You told me she was suicidal, that she'd been institutionalized once. You even brought me her therapist's notes. Marcus's lips parted. His tongue flicked uselessly over dry lips. I needed, what? Brenda cut him off, stepping closer. You needed me to help you kill her? Marcus's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The heart monitor beside me beeped faster, its rhythm matching the pulsing in my ears. I could feel the rage in the room, thick and suffocating, pressing against my skin like heat from an open oven door. Brenda took another step toward him, her eyes glassy now but burning. Do you even understand what you've done to me? She spat. You didn't just use me, you destroyed me. My name. My career. My license. You made me part of your crime. She jabbed a trembling finger into his chest. Do you know what happens to lawyers who file false petitions in federal court? Who accept stolen money? Who threaten their own clients? I'll tell you what happens, they go to prison, Marcus. Prison. He reached for her then, hands up in some pitiful attempt at reassurance. Brenda, please. Baby, please, I didn't, she slapped his hands away. Don't call me that. The silence after those words was cavernous. You could feel it, thick and heavy, swallowing the air. And then, almost imperceptibly, Brenda straightened her shoulders. Something had shifted in her, the panic, the humiliation, the fury, all of it coalesced into a cold, deliberate calm. She smoothed the front of her suit, adjusted her cufflink, and looked Marcus dead in the eye. I'm calling the police, she said quietly. Marcus's breath hitched. No, Brenda, wait, you wait, she snapped. You wait here while I make sure they know exactly what you've done, to her, to me, to everyone. She turned toward the door, heels striking the tile in sharp, deliberate beats. But before she reached it, she stopped, turned her head slightly, and added, and Marcus? When they come for you, don't you dare call me." She was gone a moment later, the door swinging shut behind her with a soft click. Marcus stood frozen, staring after her, pale and sweating, lips moving but no words coming out. I looked at him. Really looked at him. The man who had once been my husband, my confidant, my supposed protector. And I said, softly but clearly, "You should start praying, Marcus. Because Brenda's going to save herself first." One of the guards looked up at Brenda, calm but firm. "Ma'am, you need to step back," he said, voice level, authoritative. Brenda didn't move. Her eyes were locked on Marcus, the man she'd almost tied her life to, as if she couldn't quite believe he was real. Marcus was still thrashing weakly, his cheek mashed against the tile. "Get off me," he spat, voice muffled. "You can't do this. I'm her husband." "I'm her attempted murderer," Brenda cut in, her voice cold as stone. The words froze him mid-sentence. The guard nearest her glanced up, expression flickering. "You'll want to repeat that to the police, ma'am," he said. "Oh, I will," she said, still staring at Marcus. "Believe me. I will." He stopped struggling then, maybe realizing for the first time just how badly he had lost. His breath came in short, ragged bursts, his once proud suit torn, his tie hanging like a noose. The door burst open again, this time not with muscle, but with authority. 2 uniformed police officers entered, followed by a grim-faced hospital administrator. One of the guards spoke quickly, gesturing toward Marcus. "Suspect attempted to attack patient." We intervened. Brenda stepped forward, voice shaking but steady enough to carry. "Officers, I'm attorney Brenda Adebayo, senior partner at Hayes & Associates. This man's name is Marcus Washington. He is under suspicion for identity theft, wire fraud, and," she hesitated just slightly, eyes flicking toward me, "attempted murder." The older of the 2 officers raised an eyebrow. "That's quite a list." "It's also quite true," I said quietly. My voice came out stronger than I expected. "He staged an accident 4 days ago. Tried to kill me for my inheritance." The younger officer looked from me to Marcus, then to Brenda. "You can confirm this?" Brenda nodded once, curt and furious. "Every word. He used my firm, my license, and my trust. He forged financial documents, paid retainers with stolen funds, her funds. And I have the paper trail to prove it." Marcus twisted his head up, veins standing out in his neck. "She's lying. They're both lying. You think some rich lawyer's going to cover for her?" "You don't know what she's enough," the officer said, and the sound of handcuffs clicking into place was like punctuation to a nightmare finally ending. Marcus froze. The guard released him, and the officers hauled him to his feet. He looked smaller somehow, shrunken inside that once perfect suit, his bravado leaking away with every breath. As they led him toward the door, he turned his head toward me, eyes wide and hollow. "You can't do this to me," he said softly, the fight gone. You loved me." I met his gaze and held it. "I did," I said. "And that's what almost killed me." The officers took him away. For a long moment, the room was silent again. The guards relaxed, Nurse Jackie leaned against the wall trembling, and I just sat there, the beeping of the heart monitor finally slowing to something close to calm. Brenda was still there. She looked different. The fire was gone. What was left was exhaustion, and something like shame. When she finally spoke, her voice was quieter than I'd ever heard it. "Imani," she said, "I don't expect forgiveness. But I am going to make this right. Every dollar. Every record. Every filing. I'll fix it." I studied her for a long moment. Then I nodded. "Then start by calling Mr. Hayes. Tell him I'm ready to talk." Brenda exhaled, a sound that was part relief, part despair. She gathered her things slowly, her once elegant hands shaking. And as she turned to leave, she paused in the doorway. "For what it's worth," she said softly, "you're stronger than any client I've ever met." When the door closed behind her, I finally let myself lean back against the pillow. The machines beeped quietly. The smell of antiseptic hung heavy in the air. I was alive. Marcus was gone. And for the first time since the crash, I wasn't afraid. The room held its breath, then exhaled in a long, ragged sigh of relief. Marcus lay limp, a once imposing silhouette reduced to rags and dust. The guard hauled him up, snapped a zip tie around his wrists, and kept one heavy hand at the back of his neck as they guided him toward the doorway. His navy suit hung wrong now, torn at the shoulder, smudged with linoleum grime. He had the look of a man who'd been unmasked. Nurse Jackie hovered at the threshold, eyes bright but steady. "They're on their way," she said. "Detective Rowe will be here in 5 minutes." He asked for an ETA and said to hold the scene. "Don't let anyone out." Brenda's phone was tucked back into her bag. She moved with the efficiency of a woman in a courtroom, fast, precise, unflappable. She barked one last instruction at the security team. "Photograph everything. Chain of custody on those papers. Do not let anyone touch the briefcase contents. Leave the scene as is." One of the guards snapped pictures on his phone, another bagged Marcus's crumpled suit and anything that might be evidence. Brenda turned to me with a look that was all business softened by something like contrition. "Imani," she said, "I need you to tell me everything, from the start. Slowly. We'll get it on record." I nodded. Sitting up had been a battle, but my ribs had steadied and my voice, though hoarse, was firm. I recounted the call in the parking garage, the way the truck had crossed lanes, Marcus's visit to the nurse's station, the theft of my purse. I told her about the charges that hit the accounts, the receipts from bags and dinners, the forged authorization forms. I watched her face as I spoke, and for the first time what I saw was not only fury, there was also a rapidly assembling legal map in her mind, subpoenas to issue, accounts to freeze, servers to be pulled, a timeline to be built. The door opened and Detective Rowe stepped in wearing a long coat and a tired, competent expression. He introduced himself, businesslike and efficient. "Detective Rowe, Atlanta PD," he said, flashing a badge. "We got the call. Secure the scene, get statements, and I want a full sprawl of the digital trail." He looked at Brenda. "Ms. Adebayo?" Brenda met his gaze without flinching. "Detective. I have probable cause for wire fraud, identity theft, and, pending a fuller medical review, attempted homicide. I want a freeze on the assets tied to Marcus Vance and a warrant to image his devices." Rowe nodded once, curt. "We'll need the statements. Ms. Washington, if you're able, we're going to take yours now." His voice was gentle but firm, he had clearly done this before. A uniformed officer stepped forward with a pad, another set of officers began the standard processing, photographs, notes, securing evidence. Marcus sat on the edge of the bed like a man in dream, wrists bound, lips pressed thin. He tried to catch my eyes and failed. His bravado had been ground into something small and bitter. He mouthed something, an apology? A plea, but it had no sound that reached me. The room recorded it all, the whisper of the machines, the soft clack of pens, the low murmur of officers asking questions. Brenda stayed at my side while Rowe took my statement. When it was over, she placed a cool hand briefly on my forearm, not a patronizing touch, but an acknowledgement. "We'll bring him down," she said. "We'll make sure he can never touch a dollar of what's yours. And we'll make sure he answers for the rest." Outside the window, Atlanta carried on, cars, a sliver of sun hitting a distant building, but inside room 204, time had shifted. I felt an odd, steady calm settle under my skin, like ice warming into steel. The dread that had lived in me for days had been replaced by a focused resolve. Detective Rowe turned to Marcus, reading him his rights with the clinical cadence of someone who had seen too much and had to keep seeing more. Then they escorted him out, cuffs jangling softly in the fluorescent light. When the door clicked shut, the noise of the hall receded, and I was left with the quiet. Brenda gathered the scattered papers, her movements methodical, each fold and stack a small reassembly of order. Nurse Jackie adjusted the blanket at my shoulders and smiled, an expression that said she'd been on my side all along. I exhaled, long and deliberate. For the first time since the crash, the shape of the future looked like something I could step into. Not free from pain, not untouched by the scars, but mine. Brenda let the door close on Marcus's howls before she spoke. Her voice was low, controlled, every syllable measured like a legal deposition. "Don't listen to him," she said, meeting my eyes. "He's trying to drag everyone into the mud so he looks like a lone madman rather than a conspirator. That's classic. He wants chaos." She flicked her phone open and barked rapid orders. "David, freeze whatever you can at the DA's office. Tell them there's an emergent witness tampering and conspiracy angle. I want a prosecutor assigned now. If Marcus names names, we'll treat it as an attempt to intimidate a witness, add obstruction. Have forensics on standby for the audio files and server logs." She slid the phone back into her ear, listening for a second, then squared her shoulders. "They're on it." Nurse Jackie crossed to my bedside and checked the floor without a word. Her presence felt like armor. Detective Rowe reappeared in the doorway, his expression tightened with focus. He had the look of someone who'd heard threatening promises before and knew to take them seriously. "Ms. Washington," he said, stepping in, "if he's made claims about people you know being involved, tell me now. Every name, every detail. We need to separate threat from fact immediately." His tone was kind but absolute, the practical kind that makes you hand over the ugly truths. I swallowed and forced the memory out. Tamara is my sister. Ryan is her husband. Marcus was at their house the day he should have been visiting me. He told Brenda he was introducing partners to Ryan. He said they were helping him with funding. I watched both Brenda and Rowe react. Neither flinched, both were already cataloging how to corroborate or disprove each fragment. Brenda closed her phone and turned to Rowe. "Detective, we treat that claim as a potential line of inquiry. But right now, we need to contain the immediate risk. I want a protective order filed on Ms. Washington's behalf, emergency restraining order against Marcus and any named associates. We also need a criminal forfeit/freeze on any assets tied to the alleged transfers and an order to preserve all logs and communications from Hayes and Associates, Marcus's accounts, and any merchant records for the disputed charges." Her list was surgical, precise. "And no one touches anything. Chain of custody." Rowe nodded. "I'll get my team to coordinate with your people. We'll prepare a supplemental complaint for attempted homicide, witness intimidation, fraud, identity theft, everything you've described. If he's mentioning names, we'll serve subpoenas and get statements from those people immediately." Brenda's jaw tightened. "And we notify the DA that he's already attempted to suborn filings using my firm's name. That triggers federal exposure, wire fraud, conspiracy. If Marcus or his contacts have been using corporate resources or financial institutions to launder or obfuscate transfers, we pull the threads." "Will he try to contact me?" I asked, smaller than I felt. "No," Brenda said flatly. "Not without a lawyer present. He's on record now. If he even breathes towards your family or friends, we'll rush in with emergency measures." She touched my forearm once, quick, professional, not sentimental. "We're going to file for emergency conservatorship control where necessary, but only to secure your assets, not to take anything away from you. Hayes and Associates will run an internal audit and put a custodian on the accounts until the court says otherwise. I'm issuing subpoenas on his devices and accounts this hour." Detective Rowe stepped forward. "We'll also log the threats as additional criminal acts. If he tries to retract or smear you, it'll only be more evidence of intent. And I want to speak with Tamara and Ryan, not to accuse, but to get their statements about Marcus's presence and behavior." "Do it," I said, feeling steadier as plans were made around me. Brenda looked at me, the fierce professional I had first seen emerge now softened by something like resolve. "You stay put. Rest. Don't sign anything. Don't talk to anyone outside of us and the police. I'll handle Hayes, I'll handle the DA. We will make sure he pays for every inch of this." Nurse Jackie tightened my blanket, her eyes wet but resolute. Detective Rowe scribbled notes and gave a final nod. The room hummed with controlled motion, phones, radios, and the shuffle of officials turning anger and fear into work. As they began coordinating calls and paperwork, I felt the tide turn. Threats still hung in the air like sulfur, but now there were people moving through the haze with purpose. Marcus's last desperate words had been meant to intimidate, instead they had given investigators a roadmap. Brenda's hand brushed my wrist, a promise in lawyer's language. "We'll lock everything down. We'll build the case. We will not let him or anyone else bury you." I closed my eyes for a moment and let the exhaustion hit, then opened them again. Outside, Atlanta carried on. In room 204, a small army had assembled to make sure it could not. Brenda's eyes narrowed until they were slits. The baring of teeth smile never softened. She stepped closer to the window, as if sizing up the skyline, then turned back and planted both palms on the footboard of my bed. "All right," she said, voice flat and deliberate. "We do this smart. We do this fast. We hit them where it hurts: money, reputation, freedom. And we make sure they never see it coming." She tapped her phone once, hard. "David, assemble a team. Full audit on the Hattie Trust accounts, merchant records, and Marcus's transfers. Freeze anything with ties to Ryan Brooks or Tamara Brooks. Pull surveillance from Lenox Square merchants and the Del Frisco's where the cards were used. Subpoena Hayes and Associates internal logs and the wealth management communications. I want voice memos, phone records, everything. Put a forensics team on Marcus's phone and email. Capture server images. Preserve the chain of custody." She spoke faster and more precise than a judge reading an indictment. Nurse Jackie nodded and hovered closer, taking notes on a scrap of paper. Detective Rowe listened, pen poised, his face unreadable but all business. "You'll want a courtroom on short notice," Brenda continued. "Emergency hearing for conservatorship and a temporary restraining order against any named associates. If Ryan or Tamara have been complicit, we'll add them to the complaint. If Marcus fingers names, we treat it as witness intimidation and obstruction. We do simultaneous civil and criminal pressure. The DA loves a neat paper trail." Detective Rowe spoke up. "We'll open a supplemental criminal file. Attempted homicide, identity theft, fraud, conspiracy, witness tampering. I'll send a unit to interview Tamara and Ryan immediately. If their statements contradict bank records or timestamps, we've got probable cause." Brenda's hand found mine briefly, a clamp of professional solidarity rather than comfort. "You don't have to do anything but rest," she said. "I'll run interference. I'll handle Hayes and the DA. I want full access to every account bearing Ms. Washington's name. Nothing moves without the courts say so." I swallowed. My throat was raw but my mind, for the first time since I'd woken, felt like my own. "And my mother?" I asked. "If they try to, we subpoena her. We get her statement on record. We show the court the timeline, your call at Hayes, Marcus's visit to the hospital intake, the charges, the forged authorizations. We get an emergency injunction on any transfers. We stop the treasure hunt dead." Brenda pivoted, dialing again. "David, get me the DA's fraud division on the line. Tell them I have a client who just woke from a coma and we've got evidence of an alleged attempted murder tied to fraud. I want a prosecutor assigned today." She clicked the phone shut and met my eyes. "We will move so quickly they won't be able to assemble a story. We'll make them live under subpoenas and search warrants. They'll have to produce receipts, texts, emails. Their friends, their accountants, their payment processors, everyone. Their world will be audiovisual papered and locked down." Nurse Jackie adjusted my pillow. "Should I call your sister?" she asked quietly. "No," Brenda said immediately. "Not yet. We call family only when we've secured statements and protections. If Tamara is an accomplice, calling her now risks tip-off. Let the police interview her. Let them bring her in under the auspices of routine questioning. We isolate and test the story." Detective Rowe nodded. "We'll go now. I want to hear Marcus's phone logs, see transaction timestamps, get security footage from the garage at Hayes and Associates. If that truck crossed lanes on purpose, there may be dash cam or traffic cameras. We'll pull it. We'll get subpoenas executed within 24 hours. Brenda tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear and smiled, this time without teeth. We're going to do two things, make them pay, and make sure you get everything back. This is not only criminal. It's reparations. We will not rest until every cent is accounted for and every lie is exposed. She reached into her briefcase and produced a slim legal pad, then wrote 4 single words in deliberate capital letters: freeze, subpoena, for Senex, DA. She slid the pad toward me like a talisman. I want you to remember, she said softly, leaning in so her voice dropped to a private pitch, one thing, they picked the wrong target. They thought you were small and soft. They were wrong. Down the corridor, the distant din of the hospital life resumed, trolleys, a distant elevator ding. But inside room 204 the machinery of a counterattack had clicked into place. Brenda's team would mobilize. Detective Rowe would open files. Nurse Jackie would keep me safe and informed. I felt a slow heat in my chest that was not fear. It was steady, practical resolve. Brenda's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and then, as if deciding to savor the moment, tapped in a single message and sent it. Then she looked back up at me and gave the smallest curl of her mouth. They'll get their summonses tonight, she said. And tomorrow, we start dismantling their life. A few minutes later, the door opened again. 2 officers returned with a laptop and a small pile of printed bank statements, the first of the evidence cache. Detective Rowe set the laptop on the bedside table, booted it, and turned it so I could see the screen. There it was, a litany of charges, timestamps, and transfers, a spiderweb that would become their undoing. I put my hand over the pad where Brenda had written. The pain in my ribs flared, a familiar, dull ache. I breathed, centered myself on the rhythm of the heart monitor, and for the first time in a long time, imagined the future in which those ledgers spelled freedom. Brenda's expression didn't change, but her pen began tapping softly against her legal pad, a slow, rhythmic tick that usually meant she was already 10 steps ahead. Old money, she repeated, her tone dry as dust. They always think that means old immunity. Mike grunted, pulling another file from his leather satchel. We traced Brooks Holdings. It's not just a shell company. It's an umbrella. It owns at least 7 subsidiaries: logistics, private contracting, commercial real estate. The trucking outfit that hit your car was one of them. And that's not all. He flipped open the folder, revealing a stack of documents and photographs clipped together. We found payroll records showing monthly transfers to a man named Glenn Tully. He's an ex-con, did time for aggravated assault and vehicular homicide. Guess what his last known job was? Driver for Southeast Freight Logistics, one of the Brooks Holdings subsidiaries. He disappeared 2 days after your crash. Brenda leaned forward, scanning the documents. Disappeared? Mike nodded. Apartment cleaned out. No forwarding address. Cell phone turned off. Last ping was near the Savannah port. If I had to guess, he's out of the country. Which means Ryan Brooks paid him, Brenda said flatly. Paid him to drive that truck into Amani's car and then vanish. I felt the air leave my lungs. My own family, I whispered. My sister's husband tried to have me killed. Brenda closed the file and sat back, her expression controlled but her voice carrying a quiet fury. Then we treat this like what it is, a contract hit disguised as an accident. And we use their arrogance against them. Mike nodded. We're already working on it. I've got a friend at FinCEN running quiet background checks on every Brooks Holdings transaction in the last 12 months. There's a $2 million transfer to a Bahamian account last week that doesn't match any of their public filings. Brenda's pen stopped tapping. That's our entry point. If the money trail leads to that driver, we have conspiracy, wire fraud, attempted murder, the works. I sat there, staring at the floor-to-ceiling glass, at the skyline that glittered so beautifully, so falsely. Tomorrow won't believe it, I said softly. She'll defend him. She always does. Brenda gave a small, cold smile. That's fine. Let her. We don't need belief, we need evidence. And by the time we're done, she'll be choosing between her husband and federal prison. Mike leaned back in his chair. We also pulled Ryan's phone records. He called Marcus 6 times in the 24 hours before the crash, and 3 times after. One of those calls came from his firm's secure line. That's not casual contact. That's coordination. Brenda's gaze flicked to me. This isn't just personal anymore, Amani. This is systemic. If we prove that Ryan used company resources to facilitate this, his firm is complicit. That's a multi-million-dollar securities scandal waiting to explode. I took a slow breath. So what's next? Brenda reached for her coffee, her eyes never leaving me. Next, we set the stage. Marcus will flip, men like him always do when the walls close in. When he does, we'll have him testify that Ryan orchestrated the hit. In exchange, he gets a reduced sentence. He'll take the bait, and Ryan Brooks won't see it coming. She took one last sip, placed the cup down, and smiled that cold, shark-like smile again. He may have money, family, and power. But I have motive, momentum, and a client worth $29 million. We're going to strip him bare, legally, financially, and publicly. Mike closed his file and stood. I'll keep digging. The moment I find that driver or trace the offshore accounts, you'll be the first to know. As the door clicked shut behind him, Brenda turned back to me. Her voice softened, just slightly. Get some rest, Amani. The next time you see Ryan Brooks, she paused, eyes gleaming like cold steel. He'll be sitting across from you at a deposition table. I looked out at the glittering Atlanta skyline, the lights blinking like stars on the glass. Somewhere out there, Ryan Brooks thought he'd buried his problem. He had no idea that the woman he'd tried to erase was alive, and now armed with a shark, a motive, and a fury money couldn't buy. Brenda's voice faded, but her words hung in the air like smoke, heavy, choking, impossible to breathe through. I stared at the looping signature, my mother's neat, perfect handwriting. The same hand that used to write my birthday cards, the same one that had written "Love Always, Mom" at the bottom of every Christmas letter. I whispered, She signed this? Brenda didn't look away. Not only signed it, she filed it herself. She met with Ryan's attorney last week. It's notarized, dated, and filed with the court clerk yesterday morning. I shook my head, more out of disbelief than denial. No. My mother may be cold, but she's not evil. She wouldn't sell me out like that. Mike's expression was grim. She did, Mrs. Brooks. And she's cooperating fully. The investigator's report even includes recorded statements. She told them she's afraid of you. I laughed again, this time softer, almost to myself. Afraid of me? The woman who used to lock me in my room so I'd stop embarrassing her in front of church friends? Brenda didn't answer. She didn't have to. I could see in her eyes that the ground beneath my feet had shifted, and there was no going back. For a long time, none of us spoke. The hum of the hotel's air conditioner was the only sound. Finally, Brenda said, They're painting you as unstable, paranoid, and dangerous. And they're using your own family to prove it. Once the conservatorship is granted, you'll lose control of everything, your accounts, your property, even your right to make medical decisions. Ryan will be your conservator. You'll be legally trapped. I looked at her, my throat tightening. So that's it? They tried to kill me, failed, and now they're going to bury me alive on paper. Brenda's lips pressed together. Unless we move first. That pulled me back. Move how? She leaned forward, voice low. We can challenge the petition, but not just legally. We need to expose Ryan before the hearing. The payments, the calls, the fake witnesses. We'll need to make this ugly, fast. Mike nodded. We already have one of Ryan's shell accounts traced to offshore funds. But we'll need you to help fill in the gaps, where the money went, who he used. You were closer than anyone. I looked down at the affidavit again, at the signature that had once meant safety, now turned weapon. My vision blurred, but I forced myself to keep looking. If Ryan and Tamara thought I would just disappear quietly, they didn't know me at all. I folded the paper, placed it carefully back on the table, and met Brenda's gaze. Then let's burn them all down. Her laughter was like glass, pretty, brittle, and sharp enough to cut. I stood there for a heartbeat, listening. The world seemed to narrow to that one sound. Brenda gave me a small nod. Mike's hand hovered near his holster, though we both knew I wasn't the threat tonight. I took a slow breath, smoothed my jacket, and stepped forward. My heels made a deliberate rhythm on the hardwood floor, click, 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 the sound of inevitability. When I reached the archway to the dining room, I stopped. There they were. Ryan, leaning back in his chair, tie loosened, glass of champagne raised. Tamara, radiant in silk, her smile too wide, too polished. Marcus, trying to look important even in hand-me-down cufflinks. And my mother, Patricia Washington, sitting at the head of the table like the queen she'd always believed she was. Their laughter died when they saw me. For a second, no one moved. No one breathed. Then my mother's voice, soft but cutting as ever, "Imani, sweetheart, what on earth, don't," I said. The word came out low and calm, the kind of calm that lives just this side of violence. Ryan's face turned a strange shade, half shock, half fury. "You're supposed to be dead?" I finished for him. "Yes. I imagined that would have been easier for you." Brenda stepped in behind me, badge in hand, her tone crisp and professional. "No one move. We have a warrant and probable cause for conspiracy to commit murder and financial fraud." The two detectives flanked the doorway. Tamara laughed, a brittle sound. "This is ridiculous. Imani, you can't just—" I turned to her, and whatever she saw in my eyes made her stop. "You almost got what you wanted, Tamara. My car went off that bridge. I woke up in a hospital alone, broken, and the first thing I saw on the news was you and Ryan giving a statement about my fragile mental health." Ryan stood, his hands out. "Imani, listen to me." "No," I said, stepping closer. "You listen." I pointed at the detectives. "They have the wire transfers. They have the phone calls. And they have your voice, Ryan, begging Marcus to clean up your mess." Marcus started to rise, blustering something about misunderstanding, but Mike moved in, fast, pressing him back into his chair with a heavy hand. My mother hadn't moved. She just watched me, her eyes cold, assessing, calculating as always. Finally, she said, "You're overreacting, Imani. You always do. This is exactly the sort of behavior we were worried about." I almost smiled. "There it is," I whispered. "The script." Brenda dropped a folder onto the table. "Photos, documents, transcripts. That's the evidence your daughter collected, and the court will see it in full. Mrs. Washington, you may want to call your lawyer." Tamara's voice cracked. "Mother, do something." Patricia turned to her, but the calm mask was slipping now. The first flicker of fear crept in. I leaned forward, palms on the table, the smell of wine and roasted chicken heavy between us. "You all thought I'd stay silent. That I'd hide in shame, or confusion, or fear. But I learned something when I went over that bridge, when I almost died. I learned that sometimes you have to lose everything before you see people for who they are." Ryan tried to speak again, but the sound of cuffs snapping shut on Marcus's wrists cut him off. The detectives moved methodically, reading rights, collecting phones. I straightened, exhaled, and looked at my mother one last time. "You said I was too sensitive," I said softly. "Maybe you were right. But not anymore." She looked away first. As they led Ryan and Marcus out, Tamara started crying, reaching toward me. "Imani, please, I didn't," but I just turned, my voice low but steady. "Enjoy dinner." Outside, the night air was cool, the kind of clear Georgia night that smells faintly of pine and rain. Brenda walked beside me, quiet for a moment before saying, "You know this isn't over. There'll be lawyers, appeals, press." I nodded. "I know." She glanced at me. "You okay?" I looked up at the stars, at the faint reflection of blue lights flashing against the clouds. I will be, I said. But first, I'm going to take back my life. And for the first time in years, I meant it. My mother's mouth fell open first, her fork still frozen halfway to her lips. Tamara's wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering against the hardwood, a red stain blooming across the white tablecloth like fresh blood. Ryan didn't move at all, he just stared, that smug composure flickering, cracking for the very first time. I stood there in the doorway, the light from the chandelier catching the faint bruises still fading on my face. For a moment, no one said a word. Then my mother found her voice, the same voice that had scolded, judged, dismissed for my entire life. Imani, baby, what are you doing here? I smiled, a slow, dangerous thing. Having dinner with my family. Brenda stepped out from the shadows behind me, her heels silent but her presence loud. 2 detectives followed, hands resting easily on their belts. Tamara's eyes went wide. Oh my God. You brought the police? Ryan's mask slipped further, his jaw tightening. This is a private residence, he said, the calm in his tone paper thin. You're trespassing. I took another step forward. Am I? Because the last I checked, attempted murder and fraud aren't exactly private matters. The color drained from my mother's face. Attempted, what are you talking about? Brenda set a thick folder down on the dining table, a folder that landed with the heavy finality of a gavel. Wire transfers. Recorded jail calls. An affidavit signed under false pretenses, she said coolly. All linking you 3, and your son-in-law Marcus, to a conspiracy to eliminate MS. Washington for financial gain. Tamara stood, trembling now. This is insane. She's twisting everything, Mother, tell her. But Patricia Washington wasn't looking at her daughter anymore. She was staring at me, eyes narrowing, mind racing. You can't prove anything, she said finally, each word clipped, brittle. I leaned forward on the table, my hands resting on the edge, close enough for her to see that I wasn't shaking anymore. Oh, I can. The only thing I can't decide is which part hurts worse, the part where my husband tried to kill me, or the part where my mother signed papers to have me locked away while you all toasted my death. Tamara's voice cracked. We were protecting you. From what? I snapped. From surviving? The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. Even the detectives seemed to hold their breath. Ryan pushed back his chair with slow, deliberate grace, trying to reclaim control. All right, he said smoothly, that's enough drama for one night. Patricia, Tamara, don't say another word. This woman clearly needs, I cut him off. Needs what, Ryan? A doctor? A facility? Maybe a car accident to finish the job? Brenda gave the smallest nod. That was the cue. The detectives moved. One stepped forward, reciting the Miranda rights in a calm monotone as Ryan's face turned from shock to outrage. This is ridiculous. You don't know who I am. Oh, we do, Brenda said evenly. And soon, so will everyone else. Tamara started sobbing, mascara running down her cheeks. Mom, do something. Patricia tried to rise, but her legs trembled, and she sank back down into her chair. Her voice was small now, for the first time in my life. Imani, please, we didn't mean for it to go that far. It was greed, I said. It was greed, and pride, and hate. And now it's over. As Ryan was cuffed, Tamara screamed his name. The sound echoed through the house that had once held every memory of my childhood, birthdays, Christmas mornings, family dinners. It all sounded hollow now. When they were let out, I turned to my mother one last time. She was staring down at the table, her hands trembling, the fine china still set for 4. Do you remember what you used to tell me? I said softly. You said one day I'd understand that family is everything. I let the words hang there, heavy and final. Now I do. Then I turned and walked out of that house, out of the shadow of every lie, every scar, every whispered doubt, and into the cool night air, where the world finally felt like mine again. Brenda caught up beside me. Where to now? She asked. I looked out toward the city lights of Atlanta, glittering like new promises on the horizon. Home, I said. Wherever that ends up being. And for the first time in my life, I didn't look back. His voice cracked as he struggled against the detective's grip. You can't do this. You have no idea who I am. My lawyers will have you all fired before sunrise. The detective didn't flinch. The sound of the cuffs locking shut was final, mechanical, and it echoed through the room like judgment. Brenda's voice was calm, razor-edged. Oh, we know exactly who you are, Mr. Brooks. That's why we came prepared. Ryan turned, wild-eyed, looking at my mother for help. Patricia. Say something. You're just going to sit there and let this insanity happen? But my mother, the woman who once ruled this house with her voice alone, was silent. Her face was gray, her hands trembling. For the first time in my life, she looked small. Tamara was crying now, sobbing so hard her words came out broken. Mom, do something. Please, say something. Tell them she's lying. Patricia's lips parted, but no sound came out. She looked at me, not the daughter she'd belittled for decades, but a stranger standing tall and red, and for a moment, I thought she might apologize. But she didn't. She swallowed hard and said, weakly, You don't understand, Imani. We were just trying to protect the family. Protect the family, I repeated softly, almost to myself. That's what you call it? When you sign a document declaring your own daughter insane? Her eyes filled with tears. I didn't mean for it to go that far. It was Ryan's idea, no, I said, cutting her off. It was yours. He gave you the pen, but you made the choice. You always made that choice. Ryan was shouting now, voice rising as the detectives pulled him toward the door. You'll regret this, Imani. You hear me? You think this is over? You have no idea what kind of people you're messing with. Brenda stepped forward, her tone like ice. It's over, Mr. Brooks. You and your kind of people have been getting away with things like this for a long time. Not tonight. The front door opened, the cold air from outside sweeping in as Ryan and Tamara were let out, their fine clothes, their wine, their perfect dinner all left behind. The sound of Tamara's crying faded down the hall, replaced by the heavy slam of the door. Then there was only the quiet hum of the chandelier, the smell of overcooked chicken, and my mother, still sitting there, still trembling. I walked to her. She didn't look up. You raised me to believe that family was sacred, I said softly. But you never said it was only sacred if I obeyed, if I kept quiet, if I stayed small. Her voice cracked. I just wanted you to be safe. Safe? I smiled, not kindly. I was supposed to die, Mom. That's what your kind of safety meant. For a long time, she didn't answer. Then, in a whisper, what happens now? I looked around the room, at the wreckage of their perfect dinner, the spilled wine, the shattered glass, the ghost of everything I used to love in this house. Now? I said, straightening my jacket. Now I start over. I turned toward Brenda, who stood waiting by the doorway. Her eyes met mine, proud, fierce, a silent acknowledgement that the war was over. Let's go, I said. As we stepped out into the night, the sound of sirens in the distance grew louder, the final chorus to a story that had begun with betrayal and ended with justice. The cold air hit my face, sharp and clean. For the first time in a long time, I could breathe. Behind us, the lights of my mother's house glowed warm and golden against the darkness, but I knew better now. Some lights only look like home until you see what they're burning. Tamara's trial was different. It wasn't a clean confession or a quiet surrender, it was chaos. She came into the courtroom like a storm trapped in silk. Her once perfect hair was brittle and uneven, her designer suit hung awkwardly, like she had borrowed it from her old life and it no longer fit. She wouldn't look at me at first. But when she finally did, her eyes were full of something I couldn't name, fear, yes, but also obsession, like she still couldn't understand how I had slipped out from under her control. Her defense tried everything. They painted her as emotionally fragile, manipulated by her husband, traumatized by her upbringing. They said she had no part in the crime, that she was just a scared sister caught in a spiral she didn't understand. But Brenda had built the case like an iron cage. Every lie Tamara told only rattled the bars louder. When the jury foreman stood, the silence was heavy enough to crush the air out of the room. "We find the defendant, Tamara Brooks, guilty on all counts." She broke. Right there. Screaming, shaking, sobbing, not from guilt, but from disbelief that the world was no longer bending for her. The judge sentenced her to 20 years. She shouted my name as they pulled her away, like a curse, like a final plea that might still undo everything. I didn't look back. After the trials, I thought victory would feel like peace. It didn't. It felt quiet. Empty, almost. The kind of silence that follows a long storm. Brenda and I walked out of the courthouse together that day. The sky was gray, the kind that smells like rain but never delivers. She looked at me and said softly, "You did it." I nodded. "We did it." She smiled, small and tired. "So what now?" I looked out at the city, at the endless hum of traffic and life moving on. "Now," I said, "I start over." That night, back in my apartment, a small place with peeling paint and a view of the street, I poured myself a glass of wine. The same color as that pantsuit. Blood red. I stood by the window and thought about the girl I used to be, the one they laughed at, pitted, dismissed. The one who believed that family meant loyalty, no matter the cost. She was gone. But from her ashes, something stronger had risen. Not a victim. Not even just a survivor. Something more dangerous. I raised the glass to my reflection in the dark window and whispered, "To the reckoning." And I drank. Would you like me to continue with an epilogue scene, perhaps showing Imani's life 1 year later, how she's rebuilt herself, or what new secret still lingers? It could close the story with a powerful emotional note or a twist. Epilogue. It's been a year now. The scar on my temple has faded to a thin silver line, the kind you might miss if the light doesn't hit just right. But I see it every morning in the mirror. I touch it sometimes, not out of pain, but as a reminder. A reminder that I lived. I moved to DC last spring. New city, new apartment, new name on the mailbox, just mine. I started working with Brenda's firm, not as a client this time, but as an investigator. Turns out, surviving betrayal gives you a good instinct for spotting liars. We take on cases that other firms turn away, women defrauded by their partners, families silenced by wealth and fear. It's not glamorous work, but it's honest. And for the first time in my life, I wake up feeling proud. Every now and then, I still get letters. One from the prison in upstate New York, Marcus, written in a neat, obsessive hand. I don't open them anymore. Brenda says they can't hurt me if I don't let them in. Another from Tamara, her handwriting messy, desperate. "I'm sorry," she wrote once. "You have to believe me." But I don't. I don't have to do anything anymore. As for my mother, her last voicemail came 2 months ago. Her voice was thin, almost unrecognizable. She said, "I made mistakes, baby. I just wanted us to look like a real family." I sat there for a long time after listening to it. Then I deleted it. Some nights, I still dream about that dinner table, the fine china, the crystal glasses, the roast chicken going cold as the truth tore through the room. But in those dreams, I'm not frozen anymore. I'm not the ghost in the doorway. I'm standing tall, in red. And in the quiet of the dream, I always hear Brenda's voice again, "You did it." No revenge, no rage, no final explosion, just peace. The kind you earn the hard way. Because in the end, survival isn't about getting even. It's about getting free.